Want to learn some simple psychology tricks? These tricks will help you in an incredible number of areas within self-improvement, including communication, first impressions, ability to get ahead, gaining attraction and admiration, etc. And yet, they're so easy to implement within everyday life. Each one of these tricks takes seconds to implement, so as long as you can remember them, you're good to go. 20 simple psychology tricks. We've put together this awesome compilation of 20 psychological tricks and tips that'll work on any of the people you meet in daily life. Isn't that pretty cool? The best part of this is that you can immediately start testing them out for yourself. Here are the top 20 best psychology tricks. 20. Getting information. Best psychology tricks. The top 3 success lessons from Dwayne Johnson. Play video. If you have a friend that struggles to open up to you, tell you how they're feeling, or even give you simple information, this trick is a perfect way to get that information out of them in full detail. Ask them a question, and if they respond partially, or it feels like they're hiding something, simply keep eye contact and remain silent for a few seconds. The silence combined with eye contact will make them uncomfortable. They'll do anything to break this tension, even if that means giving you the information they were holding back. So remain silent for a few seconds, and they will most likely continue to talk. 19. The snack man. Best psychology tricks. If you are in a group of people, or even just with one other person, and you feel like conflict is about to break out, try this. Eat. People who are eating usually feel comfortable within their environment. Eating is a calming activity, and will likely help to smooth out conflict. If someone is angry with you and you start to eat, this will help keep conflict at bay. This fact was originally discovered after 2 people were fighting and one guy stepped in between them whilst eating a slice of pizza. He was coined the snack man. 18. The stalker detector. Best psychology tricks. Do you ever get that feeling like somebody's eyes are on you and they're intently watching you? Maybe you can feel somebody's stare on the back of your head? If you want to find out whether or not they were watching you, try this simple psychology trick. Yawn. Make sure they can see you when you yawn. After you yawn, turn and look at them. If they're now yawning, you know that they were watching you. This is because yawning is contagious. Try it, watch a video of someone yawning, and see if you do the same. In fact, even while writing this section of the article, I'm finding myself yawn uncontrollably. This is a great trick for anybody who wants to find out if someone is showing an interest in them, like a crush or so on. 17. Destroying earworms. Best psychology tricks. Ever had a song stuck inside your head? I know you have. The melody just keeps replaying over and over inside your mind, but you can't quite seem to remember which song it is. And while you can't remember, you keep trying to remember. Which leads to you wasting a huge amount of time trying to remember the name of something incredibly pointless. Well, here's the common psychology trick you've been waiting your entire life to hear. Think of the end of the song. Not the beginning, or the middle. The end. Your mind will continue to think of things that are unfinished or incomplete, according to the Zeigarnik effect. Therefore, if you think of the end of the melody, the song will be complete and your mind will reset. This'll release the song from your mind, so you can get back to focusing on something productive. 16. Always agreeable. Want people to agree with what you're saying? All you have to do is start nodding whilst you're saying the thing you want the person to agree with. The nodding action makes the person start to believe what you're saying is actually true, and therefore they will most likely begin to nod as well, and agree with you. This can work in certain situations where you might need to make a good impression on someone, but don't get greedy. This won't work on everyone. 15. Conversation conditioning. Best psychology tricks. I'm not sure how much use this trick is compared to the many other simple psychology tricks on this list. However, it could be fun to try. When you're having a one-on-one conversation with somebody, pick a word that they say a few times. Then, as they say the word, give them a positive affirmation. A smile, a nod, whatever it may be. As long as they recognize your action as a positive one, they'll begin to use the word all the time. The effectiveness of this trick will usually depend on how much of an interest the person has in you. 14. Clearing a path, the chances are you're often in crowded places, and that can be a big annoyance for a lot of people, including me. Sometimes people aren't walking the same pace, they're standing still, or there's just so many people you can't move. Here's a pretty obvious, yet effective trick you can use to help clear yourself a path. Just look in the direction you want to go. That's it. Don't look at the people around you, the environment, your phone or your friends. Just look at where you're headed, and people will make an effort to move out of your way. The reason for this is that normally people will look at your eyes, and if they can see what your vision is fixed on, they have a better understanding of your mission, and will naturally move out the way. Give it a try. 13. Reducing the risk of conflict. Reducing the risk of conflict. Best psychology tricks. If you're in a group gathering or meeting, and you think someone is likely to become aggressive towards you, sit next to them. It's very easy to show anger towards someone when they're sitting on the other side of the table, but if they're sitting next to that person, then it makes things harder and more awkward to do so. Firstly, you have to turn your body. Secondly, there is an intimidation factor. And thirdly, sitting next to each other makes things more personal, and you're unable to hide within the group's circle. 12. Rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors. Best psychology tricks. Maybe you do play this when making bets or choosing a particular person to do an unpleasant task. Maybe you don't. But if you do, here's a little psychology trick to help you win every time, probably. Ask the other person a question right before playing the game. Right after asking the question, break out into the rock, paper, scissors chant. They will be most likely to pick scissors. 11. Shoot for the stars. Shooting for the stars. Best psychology tricks. When you want something from someone, be it a certain amount of money for an item you're selling, or you want your kids to eat more vegetables, aim ridiculously high. Start by suggesting an amount that is much higher than the amount you want. When the person says no, which they should say if you've given a high enough number, then you can ask for the real amount. The other person will feel bad for already having said no, and will be more likely to accept your offer this time around. 10. Being memorable. This little psychology trick can be incredibly useful if you're trying to stand out and give people a clear memory of yourself or the time you spent with them. It's said that people remember the beginning and the end of something the clearest. The middle, however, is where things might tend to get a little blurry. What does this mean? Well, if you're setting up a time for an interview, try and make sure you're either interviewed first or last. If you're going on a date, try picking the beginning or the end of the day. And, whilst on the date, make sure to set a strong impression for the beginning and end of the date. 9. Trust mirror. Trust mirror. Best psychology tricks. If you want to build people's trust more quickly, this can be a very effective way of doing so. When you're striking up a conversation with them, try mirroring their body language. Don't do this in an incredibly obvious way, otherwise it'll probably put them off more than anything else. However, subtly mirroring people's body language subconsciously makes them think you're in sync, which works very well for building trust. 8. Learning whilst teaching. Learning whilst teaching. Best psychology tricks. A lot of people don't realize this, but people learn best when they're teaching others. Which means that if you take your learning process one step further, and teach someone else after you've studied and practiced the information, you will also significantly benefit. The 3 steps of knowledge are researching and learning, practicing, teaching, and it makes a lot of sense. Think about it. To teach someone else, you have to have all the information at hand. You'll also have to organize it and present it in a suitable format for the individual, which requires more knowledge. 7. Adrenaline rush. Adrenaline rush. Best psychology tricks. This is one of the simple psychology tricks you've probably already heard of before. If you're on a date, and you choose an activity that involves an adrenaline rush, this will help stimulate arousal in the brain, and make the other person believe they are really enjoying their time with you. 6. Warm hands. Warm hands. Best psychology tricks. When you shake someone's hand for the first time, try and make sure you have warm hands. Warm hands mean exactly that, a warm approach and introduction. This makes you far more impressive and attractive to the other person, no matter who they are. Cold hands symbolize a cold and poor introduction. 5. Eye color. Eye color. Best psychology tricks. Everyone knows eye contact is important when talking to someone and trying to build an impression. Yet a lot of people find it hard to maintain eye contact. In fact, most people are very uncomfortable with eye contact, not necessarily when listening, but when speaking to the other person. So, when you're speaking with someone else, try to make a note of their exact eye color. This way you'll make the right amount of eye contact. 4. Laughing admirers, best psychology tricks. When a group of people start laughing with each other, each individual will glance at the person they feel closest to. This is pretty good way to see who enjoys whose company the most at your office, or within your group of friends. 3. Eliminating haters. If you think that someone doesn't like you, try asking them for a really small favor, like borrowing their pen. If they don't like you, then they will be inclined to say no to your request, naturally. However, asking to borrow a pen is such a small favor, that it's incredibly hard for anyone to say no to that. After accepting your request for a small favor, he will eventually come to the conclusion that you're okay after all. 2. The great listener, best psychology tricks. Whenever your friend makes a statement, paraphrase it, and repeat it. This way, they'll think you're paying a great deal of attention and listening intently to what they have to say. Don't do this all the time though. That would not work out well for you. 1. Fatherly advice, best psychology tricks. If you're stating something to someone, or a group of people, and you don't want them to doubt your judgment, mention that your father gave you this advice. People are much more likely to believe father figures' advice at first glance.